I love my boots broken, I love my camo hat. Don't mind a little paint on my jeans, yeah, I roll like that. Love driving my truck across the railroad tracks. If you hit it too quick, it'll hit you right back. I love a fresh cut field with a new frost on, the way it shines like gold when the sun turns on. I love the sound of them wheels, my baby singing along when the boys of summer comes on. I love a small town world, I love a country girl, I love a Friday night. Man, I love this life, sound of an old dirt road rolling through my mind. Yeah, I love, man, I love, man, I love this life. I love that county line bar where they all know my name, the way she throws her hands up when that cover band plays. I love that look in her eye when she's giving me that smile. I still fall in love with her every time. I love a small town world, I love a country girl, I love a Friday night. Man, I love this life, sound of an old dirt road rolling through my mind. Man, I love, man, I love, man, I love this life. Man, I love this life. Man, I love this life. I love that ragged old barn that my grandpa made. It was my whole world back in the innocent days. I love that little white church out on 109. It's where I hit my knees and I thank the Lord for this life of mine. I love a small town world, I love a country girl, I love a Friday night. Man, I love this life, sound of an old dirt road rolling through my mind. Man, I love, man, I love, man, I love this life. 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 Man, I love this life.
Good morning, Connect Church. How are you guys doing this morning? Pretty good, pretty good. Thank you for making it here and braving that weirdness that's going out there. Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it nice out? I'm not quite sure. But today is the end of the cold snap. Not out there, but our series here at Connect Church. So we're still going to have probably 6, 8, 10 more months of winter, but we all live here for some reason, just none of us have probably really figured it out yet what that reason is. But welcome here, it's awesome to have you guys. Special shout out to the Youth for Christ Project Serve Belize team that is joining us here. Yeah, thanks. It's awesome to have you guys here with us. And if you're new, it's great to have you guys here with us this morning as well. Just a few quick announcements. On your chairs, there's a few things for you guys to look at. The one, that kind of long bookmark-looking one, the pink one, I think it is, if you want to pick that up. Something we're doing here at Connect Church is Alpha. Alpha is an awesome program for those of you that are new to your faith or new to this God thing or just have some questions or just are very curious about God and faith and church. It's a great program for you to be involved in. It's on Thursday nights. It's starting this Thursday, so today is your last time and last chance to sign up. It's an amazing program, like I said. My parents both went to it when they were early in their faith, and it was like very foundational for them and a very good time. It's free food, so like even if you're like not curious about anything, but you want a free supper on Thursday nights every week for the next 8 weeks, sign up. I may or may not be that guy, but whatever. No judgment here at all. But so today is your last chance to sign up. Go to the booth at the back there, talk to Shelly, fill that out. I encourage you guys. It's a great opportunity, great program. The second thing on your seats is every week, if you're new here at Connect, one thing that we do is we give 100% of our offering. It is getting so hot up here. I did not think this through very well at all. We give 100% of our offering every week to a cause that we believe in. And the partnership that we have this week is with Teen Challenge. You might have saw their booth in the foyer there as you came in. They're beginning a new women's program here in the province. They're an amazing ministry doing incredible work, helping people with addictions, substance abuse problems. Their success rate is far and beyond any other program in the city or in the province. So I encourage you guys to give generously to them. Go check out their booth at the back there. Go talk to some of their representatives. They'd love to give you some more information about this new women's program that they're starting in the province. I know some guys personally in my life that have been in the guys program here, and it has completely transformed their life, and it's been awesome to see God work and pierce their souls and help them through those troubled times and through that darkness. So I encourage you guys to be super generous today as we partner with Teen Challenge with our offering. The third thing that you need to know is there is no church next Sunday. Like, other churches will be open, but like we're not having church. Like, I'm not like canceling all churches for all Sunday next week or anything, but there's no church at Connect here next week at TCU because we can't get the building. It's all booked up, but there will be something on Facebook at 10 a.m. It may or may not be music. It will not be me because they don't allow me to come 2 weeks in a row, but it'll be something, and it'll be awesome. So check that out, 10 a.m. on Facebook. Also, there will be no church here next week. So thank you guys for being here. And we're going to be privileged to hear from Dean. His message is going to be, it's super inspiring, and like it'll make you want to like go out and do something and really change your life. Like, I felt like I could run through a wall after the first service, but it's really good. I encourage you guys. So just stand up. We're going to join the band in some singing. Welcome.
Well, good morning. Won't you sing with us? Greatest day in history. Death is beaten. You have rescued me. Sing it out. Jesus is alive. The empty cross, the empty grave. Life eternal, you have won the day. Shout it out, Jesus is alive. Yes, he's alive. And oh, happy day, you wash my sin away. Oh, happy day, I'll never be the same. Face to face, I am yours, Jesus, you are mine. Empty door in perfect peace, earthly pain finally will cease. Celebrate, Jesus is alive. Yes, he's alive. Oh, What a glorious day. What a glorious way that you have saved me. And oh, what a glorious day. What a glorious name. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, happy day, happy day. You wash my sin away. Oh, happy day, happy day. I'll never be the same. Forever I am changed. Forever I am changed. Yes. There were walls between us. By a cross you came and broke them down. You broke them down. And there were chains around us. By your grace we are no longer bound. No longer bound. You call me out of the grave. You call me into your life. You call my name and then my heart comes alive. Your love is greater. Your love is stronger. Your love awaits.
like a vow that is tested, like a covenant of old. And your love is enduring through the winter rain and beyond the horizon, with mercy for today. Faithful you have been, faithful you will be. You pledge yourself to me, and it's why I sing your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You father the orphan, and your kindness makes us whole, and you shoulder a weakness, and your strength becomes our own. Now you're making me like you, clothing me in white, bringing beauty from ashes. For you will have your bride, free of all her guilt, rid of all her shame, and known by her true name. And it's why I sing your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. You will be praised, you will be praised. With angels and saints we sing, worthy are you, Lord. That's why I sing your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips, your praise. Ever be on my lips, ever be on my lips.
Yes, Lord. We thank you, Lord, that we can gather in this place this morning. We can just worship you. We can tell you how much we love you, how much we honor you, how much we desire to live for you. So, God, may you just meet us where we're at this morning. Thank you for each and every one of these people in this room right now. For this all in your name. Amen. Amen. Well, we're going to take a coffee break. If you're new here, something we'd love to do in the middle of our service is grab a refill from the back or say hi to somebody that you haven't said hi to yet. So let's just do that right now. Did you know that you can be wrong and swear you're right? Some people been known to do it all their lives, but you find yourself alone just like you found yourself before. Like I found myself in pieces on that hotel floor. And hard times have helped me see I'm a good man with a good heart. Had a tough time, got a rough start, but I'm finally learned to let it go. Now I'm right here and I'm right now, and I'm hoping, knowing somehow that my shadow days are over. My shadow days are over now. Well, I ain't no troublemaker, and I never meant you harm, but it doesn't mean I didn't make it hard to carry on. But it sucks to be honest, and it hurts to be real. But it's nice to know I love that I can finally feel. And hard times have let me see I'm a good man with a good heart. Had a tough time, got a rough start, but I'm finally learned to let it go. Now I'm right here and I'm right now, and I'm hoping, knowing somehow that my shadow days are over. My shadow days are over now. Tough time, got a rough start, but I'm finally learned to let it go. Now I'm right here and I'm right now, and I'm hoping, knowing somehow that my shadow days are over. My shadow days are over now.
Well, I tell you what, that's a cool song. You should give it a listen. It's called Shadow Days by John Mayer. It's worth listening to. I heard it the first time this week, and it's awesome. Hey, welcome to week 3 of the Cold Snap series. It's our last week, and we've been talking for all of January about how to get out of a funky spot that we find ourselves in life sometimes, and how to not just get out, but stay out, and move forward faster in 2019. That's what we're talking about, and it's the last week today. I'm going to ask you to take those offering baskets that are in the front and just keep them in your sections and pass them back. All the money that you give today, 100% of it is going to Teen Challenge, and we've been pretty excited to have those guys as partners with us all through January here. So pretty cool organization doing some great things. Well, I've been thinking about today's date and this series. January 27th it is today. Almost 1 month into a new year. So how did you, if I was going to sit across a table from you at a coffee shop and say, hey, how'd the first month go? How you doing? Like, are you doing what you said you were going to do, what you wanted to do? Are you becoming who you wanted to become in January? Did you keep going to the gym, or is that already gone? Did you drop that 7 pounds you thought you were going to? How'd that go? I might not say it so quickly, but I would get there over an hour at a coffee shop. Mine, January, just went so incredibly fast. It's just like, shh, And I just want to reach out and just kind of slow it down a touch. That's what I want to do. And then I was thinking about the other side of January 27th. The other side is that means there's only 338 days left in 2019. And my question is always this: what are we going to do to make this the best year that we've ever had? What are we going to do in the next 338 days left to make it a great year? You know, last week I told you about a paper that I wrote up, or a list I wrote up in 2009, I believe it was. We were living in the States at that time, and the States was in a big recession financially. People were losing their jobs and their homes and their businesses like nothing I'd ever seen. It was so bad financially. And people, because of that, were living in fear. And people in that fear got a little bit stuck. They had been used to big corporations hiring them, and that's how they got their job. And when the big corporations quit hiring them, they didn't quite know what to do. They weren't able to get unstuck themselves. And so we just wrote up a list of 12 ways to think like an entrepreneur, 12 ways to get unstuck, 12 ways to get out of a cold snap. And last week I gave you 4 of those. I said, if you want to get out of a cold snap, you've got to problem solve. Don't problem complain or problem manage or problem, stew or sit or worry. Problem solve. You got to do that. Second thing I said was that you got to realize that action gets rewarded, that movement is what you're looking for if you want to get out of a cold snap. You got to kind of do something with what you got and take a step forward. The third thing we said was that if you want to get out of a cold snap, you got to be willing to adapt, that flexibility is king. You can't do the same things you've always been doing and expect a different result. We said last week that was crazy thinking, and we don't want to do that. And then we said the fourth thing was this, that we have to take responsibility for where our lives are at. That it isn't anybody else that's going to take responsibility for our life, or it isn't anybody else that's going to get us out of that. We got to take responsibility for where we're at and then move out of that rut if we can. This week I've got 4 more ideas that came from that paper from 2009, all about getting out of a funky season. And all of those ideas last week and this week come out of the same Bible story from 1 Samuel 14. And I'm going to just kind of recap the story a little bit so we know where we're at. And then this week I'm going to tell you the ending, which is super cool. This story is an action-adventure story in 1 Samuel 14. It is not a romance. It's nothing like that. It's got people, or men fighting against other men in an army, and there's bloodshed, and there's victory. And like every action-adventure, the bad guy always gets beat up by the good guy at the end. And the good guys win. So that's what happens in the story. I'm just telling you, we'll get to that later. Now, at this point where the story begins, Israel is a brand new nation. This takes place about 3,000 or so years ago, and they had just God had anointed their first king. His name was Saul. And I said last week that Saul was just an okay king. He was a good leader. The reason they elected him or wanted him to be king is because he was the head of the army. He was a strong man and a good fighter in the army. So they elected him king. Now, the enemy of Israel during those days where Saul was around were the Philistines. The Philistines were always invading Israel, always invading, and they were always winning. They beat up Israel all the time. They were big, bad, mean warriors. That's what they did, and they loved to fight. And they did it well, and they beat up on Israel every time they came in. And they controlled Israel. I said this last week, but they were also smart. They controlled Israel, that they would come in and attack and plunder a town, and then the people they would take away with them were all the iron workers and all the blacksmiths. So eventually, after a few years, there were no iron workers and blacksmiths left to make weapons out of iron in Israel. They were all living with the Philistines. And so the Philistines controlled them, and actually when this story starts, I read this last week, but when the story starts, there is really only 2 swords and 2 spears and 2 shields in the whole country. Saul the king has a sword and a spear, and his son Jonathan have a sword and a spear. There's 600 people in the army that are ready to fight in this story for Israel, and there's only 2 swords and 2 spears, so they're in trouble. So the story starts with, again, these Philistines are invading the country. And they're really everywhere. There's hundreds of them, thousands of them everywhere, and they're just beating up on Israel. And we see the army of Israel is gathered together, 600 men, as it says that they're sitting under a pomegranate tree, under several pomegranate trees. They have no weapons. They're not having any fun. They have no hope, no plan. They certainly have no faith in God to do anything about it. And because of their no hope and no plan and no faith, they are filled with fear. They're defeated before the story even really gets going. But the story revolves around Jonathan, the king's son. And he's frustrated by this, by all these guys sitting around a tree moping. And so he can't take it, and he decides to do something. And so he sneaks out of camp, and he doesn't tell anybody. He doesn't have orders to do what he does next. He doesn't ask permission to do it. And in verse 6 and 7 of 1 Samuel 14, it says this. It says, Jonathan said to the young armor bearer, so he takes the guy with him, this young guy that carries his armor and carries his backpack and that kind of thing. He says, come, let's go over to the outpost of those Philistines, and perhaps the Lord will act on our behalf. Nothing can hinder the Lord from saving, whether by many or by few. And his armor bearer has this great line. He says, do all that you have in mind. Go ahead. I'm with you in heart and soul. And so Jonathan says, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go over there and we're going to pick a fight with these guys. And so he goes out, and the story is awesome. He goes out and he picks a fight with these guys, and he goes up, and listen to what it says. They call him out and said, hey, you guys come up here, and we're going to show you a lesson. We're going to teach you something about how to fight. And they go up there, and Jonathan and his armor bearer, it says, do this. It says, the Philistines fell before Jonathan that day, and his armor bearer followed. In that first attack, Jonathan and his armor bearer killed some 20 men in an area about 1.5 acres. Action story, bloodshed, fighting. Bad guys getting beat up by good guys. Are you with me? All right. Verse 15. I'm going to say this is the rest of the story. So it says that day Jonathan and his armor bearer killed these 20 guys. And then it says this, right after. Verse 15 says, then, right after that happened, then panic struck the whole Philistine army. Those in the camp and in the field, those in the outposts and those in the raiding parties, and the ground shook. And then it says this line, it was a panic sent by God. So Jonathan goes out with his armor bearer and he beats up these guys. And then what happens? Then God sends a panic into the Philistine army right after that. And the ground shakes and they were panicking. And then in verse 20 it says, then Saul and his men assembled. So Saul, who was sitting under the tree, his men who were sitting under the tree not knowing what to do. When they felt the ground shook and when they saw what was going on, it says they assembled and went to battle, and they found the Philistines in total confusion, striking each other with their own swords. So God sends this panic, and the Philistines started beating each other up. Crazy story. Are you with me? This is the climax right here. Verse 22 says, when all the Israelites who had hidden in the hill country heard that the Philistines were on the run, they joined the battle in hot pursuit. Don't you love it that the Bible has that line in it? They joined the battle in hot pursuit. And then it says this, and so the Lord rescued Israel that day. Great story. My goodness. What's the key to the victory? Jonathan's belief in himself, Jonathan's belief in his God, courage and faith and action combined. Something in that formula of what happened, right? Of Jonathan's faith and Jonathan's courage and his action, something in that formula caused God to act on the country's behalf, on Jonathan's behalf. Well, last week, what was the big line we said? We said that God loves to partner with people who trust him and are moving forward in their life. And that combination of faith and action and courage, what did it do that day? It changed the fate of a nation. It's a great story. So many things we can learn from it. So here we go. This week I'm going to give you 4 things off that list from 2009 that come out of this story. And the idea is that these will further help us to get out of a cold snap or out of a funky season and into and on to great 2019. So here's number 1. Number 1 is this, that we need to set bigger goals and be growth-driven if we want to get out of a cold snap. If you look at this Bible story from a momentum in life kind of angle, or from a direction in life angle, it's pretty obvious to see what's going on. It's not hidden. There's 600 older, smarter, tougher, more experienced army guys and all their leaders there sitting under a tree, and what were they doing? They were fearful of the enemy. They were frozen in their fear, and they had no goals in front of them. If you and I could be able to walk through their camp like a news reporter, right? we're walking through the camp under the pomegranate trees, and these 600 guys are there, and the enemy is all over the hillsides, throttling the nation, and these 600 guys are sitting there. What if we ask them a question? You walk in there with a news camera and a mic, and you say, hey guys, what are your plans? Dead silence. Hey guys, what are you going to do about the enemy? Because they're beating everybody up and you're sitting under a tree. Or, hey guys, take it a step further. What's the plan or what's the goal to get more swords and spears? Because you don't have very many and they have all of them over there. What's your plan? I mean, what would their answer have been? Well, we're really not sure what the plan is. So we're just waiting here under this tree. No plans, no goals, no objectives equals what? Equals no success. But Jonathan, although his plan maybe wasn't the greatest plan, we said that last week, but his goal was awesome. We're just two young guys, and the Philistines are many, and they're stronger than us, but we've got God on our side, so why wouldn't we just go out and do something, because I think God will give us the victory. Let's go fight with those guys and see what God does, because with God, anything is possible. That was their goal. So let's try. Let's go for it. Now, Jesus has the very same line a few hundred years later. He's talking to a group of people about heaven one day, Jesus is. And this is the line that he says. He says, with man, this is impossible. He was talking about heaven to the people, right? With man, heaven's impossible, but with God, all things are possible. I used to hang out with a preacher from Toledo, Ohio, when we lived there, and his name was Otis Washington. And Otis was a massive human being. He was a big man. He was a black, charismatic preacher. And if you know kind of a little bit about that, those guys are fun to listen to. They have a specific style and rhythm, and kind of, it's just how they do things, and they're loud when they preach. Anyways, we used to go for lunch, and I'm telling you, the guy always had the nicest suits. He'd come to lunch, and he'd be wearing a suit and these brand new shoes that were so shiny, and I'd show up like never looking this good, ever. And he'd go, hey, how's it going? And we'd talk, and he tried to convince me to preach a little stronger. He said, brother, you got to bring the fire. And I went, okay, all right, we'll bring the fire. And then he said, you got to get some crowd participation going. Your church is silent. You got to get them moving with you. And during your sermon, I wasn't very good at that. To be honest, I didn't really want to do it. So anyways, but he used this verse, the one I just read, as an example when he preached one day. He'd say, how much is possible with God? And before anybody could answer, he'd say, all things are possible with God. It was awesome. And then he'd say this, tell me, church, how much is possible with God? And everybody, like they knew what to do. Everybody in the whole church went, all things. This is in church. I was like, that's cool. And then he'd say, tell me, church, did the Bible say that just a little bit is possible? And they went, no, preacher. And then he said this, did it say, church, talk to me, church. He said, did it say that you can't dream big dreams? No, preacher. And then he'd say this, he'd say, this was awesome. He'd say, did it say you can't get there from here? Did it say you can't get to where you need to go, where your dreams are? Because of where you come from. And they said, no, preacher. Awesome. And then he stopped and he goes, well, then what does the Bible say? And they knew what to do. It was like a choir. They said, with God, all things are possible. Oh, so cool. Now, I wanted to try and sort of fire that up here this morning, but instead, I think we're going to do it in a Canadian way. We're going to use our inside voices. We're going to use it, that voice that's inside your head, that voice that's inside your heart when you hear God talking to you. So just say this a few times. Don't say it out loud. Oh my goodness, don't say it out loud. But say it inside your head. With man, it is impossible. Inside voice. But with God, all things are possible. With man, it is impossible. But with God, all things are possible. Now say it once more, only use emphasis on the words all and possible. Just inside voice in your head, in your heart. With God, all things are possible. So let me ask you, if that's true and all things are actually possible with God, why wouldn't we aim higher in our lives? Why wouldn't we set some big goals? Why wouldn't we try to tackle some bigger projects? Why wouldn't we dream great dreams for your family? Why wouldn't you plan to break out of the negative cycle of addiction that you've been in for a generation or two? Or why wouldn't you, get out of the cycle that your family has been in for 100 years? I mean, if it's really true that God is with us and that all things are possible with Him, why wouldn't we aim super high, way higher than you can think of doing without God's help? This week we were in a group of us, we were setting some big long-term goals for Connect Church. And we all were sitting around the table and kind of got a number in our heads of where we'd like to see. And the number was this, I'm just going to throw it out there. The number was that we'd like to see 10,000 people come to faith in Jesus Christ and get connected to the church somehow through Connect Church. And we don't quite know how that's going to take place, whatever, but it's a big goal. We're sitting there on there. That number of 10,000 hits. Have you ever heard of a church in 10,000 in Canada? Well, let me tell you, there never has been a church of 10,000 in Canada. It's a big goal. We're all sitting around, and you know what? It sounds crazy, but it was beyond who we were, right? We knew in that moment when we were sitting there, we couldn't do that on our own. That's going to be God who does that. And it sounded crazy. It's like, man. But with God, all things are possible, so why would we aim low? Okay, that's number one. Aim high, set big goals, and expect God to show up. That right there, aim high, set big goals, expect God to show up, is how success happens in life. Here's number two. If you want to get out of a cold snap, you got to self-evaluate. You got to ask some good questions as you're moving. Now, this is the pretty cool part of this story that we just touched on a little bit last week, but the interaction between Jonathan and his armor bearer as they're about to go out with their plan is pretty cool when you read it. Jonathan pulls his friend aside and says, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And he lays out the plan. We're just going to go over, we're going to pick a fight with those guys, and, and God will help us. What do you think? Now, it doesn't say this, but I think the conversation could have been a little longer than what's recorded in the Bible. I think the conversation maybe would have went more like this. I think Jonathan would have said, okay, well, we're going to sneak away, and we might get into trouble just for doing that, and then we're going to go over there, and those big guys, we're going to pick a fight with them, and we've never beaten them. And they might beat us up, they might even kill us. Are you okay with my plan? Or are we nuts? What do you think I should do? Do we have a plan B if that doesn't work? And should you have a plan B if you think God's going to do something with plan A? And what happens next? And I'm sure the Lord will help us, but I think Jonathan was asking some great questions of himself and getting advice from the guy that he was walking with as well. You know, sometimes in the fray of all that happens in our lives, and when we're in the grind of just living, that 40, 50 hours a week at work, that 40 or 50 hours a week at family, and we sleep a little bit, and all of a sudden it's Monday morning again, and we're back on the grind. Often we don't really take the time to breathe a little bit and just ask ourselves some good questions, especially when 2019 is whipping by us. Questions like, how healthy am I? And do I even know? How much more time can I commit to X, Y, or Z to make X, Y, and Z sustainable? How much more pressure can I put on myself? How much more pressure can I put on my workplace? How much more pressure can I put on my family? How much more pressure can I put on the system? How's my physical body doing? Am I doing okay? How's my mental state? What about my emotions? How's my spirit doing? I mean, in the middle of the grind, is my spirit feeling filled and watered, breathing, or is it, kind of clamped up? Or I've noticed I've been a little impatient lately. I wonder why that is. Or that new project I'm leading is taking so much more energy than I thought I would. I wonder how I'm managing the rest of my energy. Anyways, all I'm saying is that self-evaluation and self-leadership, asking some good questions as you walk through life, is always a super healthy thing to do. And I believe it's in those moments, right? Maybe it's first thing in the morning when you get to work before everybody else, or maybe it's, last thing at night you get just 10 minutes, or maybe it's you stop for coffee on the way home from work and you just blank piece of note paper in front of you and a pen and you ask yourself some of those questions. I believe it's in those moments after we ask those questions, in that silent space, those are the moments that God tends to speak the clearest to us. It's interesting. I met a guy this week that I hadn't seen for a while. He's a business guy, a high energy guy. And I just ran into him. He doesn't come here or anything, but I ran into him and I said, hey, how's your New Year going? Like, how's things going in January? And I thought he would say, oh man, I'm busy, we're cooking, we got this going on and that going on, because that's who he is. You know, I thought he'd say, this company's taking over that one, it's going to be great. And he said, to be honest, he said, I got to figure a few things out in January. I went, oh, that's a different tone. And he goes, you know, I got this leadership coach who's trying to teach me some things and coach me up a bit. And he said, and I got some things that I got to figure out in my background. He said, so I'm going to some counseling. And I think he felt free to say that, but anyways, I got an idea when he was talking. And the idea was this, that sometimes the best plan of action for success, right? Maybe the best plan of action is just slowing down enough so you can get a little coaching in your life, or slowing down a little bit and say, I got to figure some things out, so I'm going to go to a counselor and kind of work through some stuff. Maybe that's the best plan of action for success in 2019. Okay. Here's number 3 way to break out of a cold snap, and that is to ask for forgiveness, not permission, and to have that mindset. And right there, I could feel all the insurance guys in the room, all the safety first guys are going, oh, you don't have to go there, not in church. Well, let's take you back a little bit in our story and look at Jonathan's mindset. He looks around at all the 600 guys sitting under that tree with no momentum and no plan and no courage, and they're moping around, grumbling and complaining, and they are solving 0% of the problem. What percent? 0. They're not solving the problem at all. So he says to himself, I have got to get out of this situation. I got to get some clear sky. I got to try something to fix the problem, but I can't tell anybody because I'm too young and they'll try to talk me out of it, or they'll think I'm crazy, or I'll get in trouble just by asking the captains and the leaders of the army. And my dad is the king, so I could really, he's in charge, but if I ask him, there's no way he'll let me go. But I know that I'm supposed to step out and work, so what do? Well, here's what he did. He snuck out of camp, and he decided not to ask for permission, and he decided to worry about the challenge of that later. Now, it was a little out of step what he did. He wasn't following orders, and I don't know how the army worked then, but if you did that in the army now, it'd be illegal. You'd get put in jail. And he wasn't towing the party line for sure. He wasn't looking for any friends. Hey, you guys suck. You're sitting under a tree, so I'm going to go do something. He wasn't doing that. He wasn't maintaining the status quo. Absolutely not. And you know what? He said to himself, I'll straighten that out a bit later, but for today, we're going to move forward and take action. And people, all I've got to say about that is this. Far too often, we have safety zones as our mindset in life instead of action zones. Way too many of us think that we have to ask way too many people permission before we ever take action in our own lives. That was fast. Way too many of us think that we have to ask way too many people permission before we take action of our own lives. And lots of us think that any action in our lives that's wise must also be safe every single time. And all I'm saying is this, I'm not sure that's true. Wisdom does not equal safety every single time, at least not when you read the Bible. And the truth is, living inside of 1,000 safety zones, living inside of 1,000 safety rules and safety checkpoints before we give ourselves permission to step out and move forward in life at all, well, I don't think that was God's design or intention for us either. At least not when He created us, it wasn't. See, we were designed, we were created by God as human beings to actually be creative with how we approach our lives and how we solve problems in life. We were designed by God as human beings to be adventurers and people of action and to be people of faith and to step out and trust God and make a difference with our lives in this world. We were designed by God to become anything we want to become, to discover anything that we would want to discover, to do whatever is in front of us that needs to be done. We were designed by God to live and move and breathe with adventure and destiny and calling in mind. Now, I'm not saying throw caution to the wind intentionally put yourself in some risky situation. That's not what I'm saying. But just analyze, just a bit. Analyze, why do we so often think safety and comfort and routine and status quo and permission as much as we do in life? You know, the main message that I have for my kids at this stage of their lives, they're kind of in that in-between stage. They're kind of adults, and I think they probably are adults, but they're kind of almost adults. They're like 19, 21, 23, 24 in there. And the main message that I have for my kids at this stage is this. I just keep saying to them, there's no need to be timid in your life. You don't have to wait for somebody else to lead your life. Just lead your own life. I say things like, if you're... it's your life. You don't have to ask anybody permission to live it. And my job as a parent, my job as a guide to them, is to have the same line that Jonathan's armor bearer had when Jonathan had his idea. What did he say? Jonathan says, hey, let's go beat those guys up. Let's see what God will do. Let's put ourselves at risk. And what did his armor bearer say? He said, do all that you have in mind. Go ahead. I'm with you in heart and soul. As a parent, that's what I want. I want my kids to go live the adventure. Do all that you have in mind. Go ahead. I'm with you in heart and soul. See, I want my kids to see possibilities when they look at life. I want them to see adventure, and I want them to be action-oriented with their lives, and I want them to dream big dreams and make their own path and not get stuck or sucked into a no-adventure system and a rut. Oh, you don't want that for your kids. Why don't I want that? Because action and courage and stepping out by faith in life gets rewarded. That's number 4 that I'm talking about. To get out of a cold snap, you got to realize that courage gets rewarded. Let's again look at the sequence of this Bible story. Jonathan stepped out in courage. He sets big goals. He doesn't play it safe. He trusts in God. He doesn't ask permission from man. He actually lays his life on the line, believing that God's power is with him. He actually puts his life in danger. And then what happens? What happens next in the sequence? It's the end of the story. God shows up in a much bigger and more powerful and way more fantastic way than Jonathan ever thought possible. I mean, Jonathan's idea was to just go after that one Philistine outpost, 20 guys. That was his plan. Let's go see if we can't beat those guys up with God's help. But God used his courage and his faith and his action to remove all the bad guys, thousands of them. See, God wanted the whole Israelite army, all those 600 guys under the tree, God wanted all of them to know that his power was with him. And he wanted all those 600 guys under the tree to know that he would bring them the victory and that they need not fear. See, and really all God wanted was one little guy with great faith and great courage to step out and really trust him. And then God rewarded that stepping out and saved the entire nation. You know, there's a verse in the Bible that I always struggle with a little bit, mostly because it's not super clear all the time. But I think it applies here. Hebrews 11 verse 6 says this. It says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. And I would add this. I would add, without courage and without risk and without setting some pretty big goals and without a little reckless abandonment, chasing those goals and without taking action before you have all the answers and without stepping out, believing God will show up, it is impossible to see God's power displayed in your life without all those things. It just won't happen. And I think all of us want to see God's power displayed in our lives. Okay, so I got to wrap this up. I didn't know how, so this is what I wrote. If you want to get out of a funky spot, and if you want to get out of a cold snap that you find yourself, or bigger picture, if you want to experience all of God's power and blessing moving forward in 2019, find a way to take a risk with your faith. You say, well, Dean, that's not very practical. What do you mean? How about if it looks like this? God, I believe that you want me to grow my business. That's been in my heart. I've been working on it. You've been helping me with it, but I believe you want to grow my business. So I trust you, and so I'm going to do this. Pick something and see what you do with that. I trust you, God, about my business. I want to grow my business, so I'm going to take this step, God, and I believe that you're going to meet me in that with your power, and we're going to see what you do with that. Or you say, God, I want your help. You know that, God, I want to help people in great need in this city. I see them all the time downtown. I see them at the lighthouse, and I see them all over, and they're just hurting people. And God, I want to do something to help that. I don't know what to do, but I trust you with that dream and with that vision, God, so I'm going to step out, and I'm going to do something, and I'm going to see what you do, and you're going to add your power, and together we're going to do something great. Or God, you know that I've always wanted my friend and my sister to come to faith in you. I would love for them to get to know you, Jesus. And I trust you with that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what? God, I trust you with my friend and my sister, and so I'm going to step out and I'm going to do something. I'm going to pray for them every day. I'm going to invite them to church. I don't know. And so I'm going to do this, and God, I hope your power shows up with me. Or God, you know that I've always wanted to go to a third world country on a missions trip. Every time it gets talked about in church, it sits in here in my heart, and I've always wanted to go, and that's from you, and I believe that you're wanting me to do that. So God, I trust you with that, and I'm going to step out with that. And I'm going to put $100 a month away for 8 months, and the next time a missions trip comes up, and God, I believe that you're going to meet me in the middle of that. Or God, you know I always wanted a great marriage, or to run a marathon, or to give more money away, or to open up a second location, or whatever it is. And God, I trust you, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to step out, I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to see what you do with that risk. People, if you want to have an awesome 2019, do something to up your game spiritually. Listen to what God has already placed in your heart to do. Like, you already know about a missions trip. You know, you felt that. You already know that when you see poor people in the street that you want to just help them. You already know that you're working away at your business, and wouldn't it be great to take a next step? And you know the things that God places in your heart. So listen to what God has already placed in your heart, and then step out and do something to show that you trust Him with that dream. Take action with your faith in 2019, believing that God will show up in power. God, I trust you, so I'm going to do this, and you're going to meet me with power. Why don't you stand, and I'm going to pray, okay? Let's pray together. God, it is awesome when we read your word and it becomes so clear in our lives. You always are looking to partner with people of courage and of faith. You are looking to partner with people of action. And so, God, I pray that you would not allow us to be timid with our lives. God, would you instill courage in these your people, and would you give them an extra measure of faith? Would you give them dreams and pictures and visions of where you want them to go in their lives and what you want to make a difference in the world through them? God, we want to set bigger goals because we want to trust you to reach them. So God, would you bless these people with more faith and more courage and more action? And God, would you pull us out of the ruts that we get in sometimes? Thank you that you never, ever let go of our hands, that you are always marching us forward to victory in life. We pray that in the strong name of Jesus. Amen. Woo! Couple things before you go. This Thursday, Alpha starts. Super cool program. If you're looking to get connected to Christianity or ask some questions, that happens this Thursday night. You can sign up at the table at the back. And then remember, no church next Sunday, but you can watch online. I'll be doing something at 10 o'clock, all right? Love you guys. Have a great week.